Ladies and gentlemen, we now turn to the voices that carry us forward, our students. Voices of the Future features young change makers who are redefining what it means to learn, lead, and create impact. I'd like to call Mr. Ron Berger once again on stage to do the lightning talks with the students. Lightning talk by Mr. Ron Berger.
So instead of talking today, I want to hear from students here. I am so happy to have 1,000 Beacon House stars here in the room. I'm interested in what your questions are for me as I work with students all over the world. What are the kinds of things you'd like to ask about your work, about the beautiful work I just spoke about student passions, or about work in America? So I don't know how we'll handle questions coming up, but I'm here. This is just a quick Q&A of what questions do you have from the sharing I just did?
All right, Mr. Ron, first of all, thank you so much for the work that you've done for education throughout the world. Considering the mandate of this session is rethinking education, I wanted to ask you about the role of artificial intelligence in the coming age of education, considering it is going to be a big part of everyone's lives over here. So my exact question is, will we be able, or do you foresee in the future that education will be able to personalize education for students? As we saw earlier, the skills of each and every student were specific to them. Some were good at art, some were good at studies, some were maybe not so good at studies. So will we be able to utilize artificial intelligence to personalize those education for each of those students? Do you foresee such a future?
Wow, what a great question. I love that it's coming from a student, because all of us in education are trying to figure out how artificial intelligence is going to change this world, the world of education and the world we all live in, and none of us know for sure. So all of you students, your guesses are as good as any of us as adults about how things will change with AI, but I can tell you some of my feelings about it. Many teachers around the world that I meet see AI as only a danger. What if our students use AI to do their papers? What if they use AI to do their mathematics? What if they won't learn anything? Those are real dangers. But I see AI as a potentially great tool to do beautiful work. When I had my students test the water of everyone in my community, everyone's well in town, the work they did would not have been possible without a computer. 50 years earlier, they could not have done that work. They needed to use a computer to analyze all of those data, tens of thousands of pieces of data for each family. I see AI in exactly the same way. I hope all of you Beacon House students begin using AI for good as a part of significant projects that you can contribute to the world with. And I think the challenge for us as teachers and school leaders is, how do we design ways in which assessments are not dependent on whether AI is used or not? We should not only be giving assignments that if kids use AI, it ruins the assignment. It pushes us to give a whole different kind of assignment. So let me connect it to project-based learning for you. There are teachers around the world who are right now saying, because of AI, I can never give my students work to do outside the classroom because I don't trust them, because I worry they may use AI. I can't give them problem sets. I can't give them essays to do. I can't give them poems to write, because how will I know if they wrote it or AI did it? And so what they've done instead is they make their students write by hand in a book in front of them in class for all of their work, because that's the only way they can trust them. I think that's crazy. I want students to do powerful, important project work, and I want them to use AI just like we all will and all already do. But I want there to be systems where students can show you their thinking and their work, like the Austin's butterfly system. Let me give a very specific example. My grandson, I have grown grandchildren, my grandson's fiance creates costume. This is a strange thing, I'm sorry. She creates costumes for anime and manga. So she creates costumes like Japanese cartoons, and she competes in worldwide competitions at Comic-Con conferences, getting on stage in the costumes that she creates. And she wins those big fake checks, giant checks for $10,000 or $5,000. And I asked her, how do they know that you didn't just go online and buy that costume? How do they know you actually made it? And she said, oh, I have to submit a build book, a book with a picture of everything I did when I built this costume. And the judges sit there in front of me with my build book, and they ask me tough questions about why I made this decision, why I made that decision, why I used this material, why I used this kind of stitching, why I built in LED lights in this part of it. AI could have created that build book, but I could not have been able to answer any of their questions if I had not actually done the work. And immediately I realized we can do just as complex and exciting projects with kids as we ever did. We just need them to collect evidence along the way. And we need to meet with those students and say, why did you make this choice in your project? Why did you make that choice? Why did you use AI in this way at this point? So I have a very different sense of trusting students. I want to trust students to do brilliant and beautiful work. I want them to use AI, and I want them to keep evidence so that when we talk to them about their project, they can share how they made brilliant decisions and how they used AI as part of that process. That's a really great question.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Abiha Fatima. I'm an A-level student of Beacon House Margila campus. The stories that you shared were phenomenal, and my question is that we've been taught to study one way since centuries, this one traditional way. How do you think that we can blend creativity into our daily lives and change that traditional system?
How do we change this? I'm sorry, let me make sure I understand.
How do you think we can blend creativity into the traditional system that we've been taught, the marking system?
Yeah. So I spend all of my time traveling around the world, meeting with teachers and school leaders who are not like Beacon House teachers and leaders, who are only doing traditional learning. They're not using projects. They're not empowering kids and giving kids power to make great decisions like you can at Beacon House. And they're very afraid to take a risk. They're very afraid to trust students to do beautiful work. And I tell them to start small and try one thing. So here's a story that I share with them. It's going to sound like a story that's not connected to education, but I will bring it back for you. My father worked at the same job for 47 years. He worked at a chemical plant in America. And back in the old days in America, if you worked at the same job forever, you got a pension, and then you could live off your pension. The world is a little different now. So he worked at the same job for 47 years, and he said, someday I'm going to retire, and your mother and I are going to get to travel to other countries. And so he retired after 47 years working at a chemical plant at age 68. Unfortunately, he only lived 1 year. He died at age 69 of a heart attack. But that 1 year was the best year of his life because he and my mother had money, he had a pension, they got to travel for the first time to other countries. And he called me up and he said, Ron, you have to come to our home because we just went to Europe and we have so many pictures and we have to show you these pictures. So I got in my truck and I drove to their home. If you're young in this room, you won't remember this time, but there was a time when pictures did not live on a phone. They lived actually as a piece of an actual photograph. And so they had these photographs all over their house on every table and every chair and every couch, photographs of Europe. And they were so excited to share them with me. And I started looking at these photographs and I noticed something strange, which was that every photograph was framed by a train window and they were all a little blurry. And then I said, what's this photograph? And they said, well, that's a cathedral, or that's a church, or that's a castle, that's a city in Switzerland. No, maybe it was Italy. No, maybe it was France. No, maybe it was Switzerland. They actually could not remember anything of where their pictures were taken. And I said, how many countries did you go to? And they said, well, it was a package trip. It was 14 countries in 12 days. I said, so you're pretty much on the train the whole trip. And they were like, well, not only, but mostly, yeah. And I had this epiphany because I thought, what if they had only seen 5 countries? What if they had gotten off the train in Italy and been able to have a great Italian meal and gone to the Uffizi Gallery in Firenze and seen beautiful artwork? And they would have come back so excited about Italy. But they didn't have that opportunity because they were always on that train. And I realized that was my entire education from kindergarten to university, was being on that train. We never slowed down. We never had the chance to get deep. We never had the chance to do something beautiful. And it just went by the window. We memorized things. We took the test. They were gone. The quadratic formula went and gone. The dates of wars, the dates of civilizations, the names of presidents, they came and went. They came and went. I forget them all now. And at the end of the journey, when I was ready to go to university, it was all a blur. And I thought, I'm not going to do that to my students. I'm going to stop the train in Italy or Switzerland and let them do a project, let them do something beautiful, let them learn something deeply. And so when I speak to teachers or leaders who say, but we need to do the traditional curriculum, we need to do the traditional learning only, we can't ever stop that, I say, I'm not telling you to stay in Italy. I'm just saying stop the train a few times this year. Let your students do something deep and something well. Doesn't have to be everywhere. I only got to see 2 Beacon House schools yesterday, but they were brilliant. And so I did not have that problem because I saw beautiful work on the walls and I saw beautiful thinking in classrooms where things were slowing down and where kids were going deep. But that's not the case in most of the world. And so getting off that train is the story I share with them. It's a really great question. All right, well, let's do one more question.
Yes, I was going to say, students, I know that you all have questions to ask. You can share them with me later on and we'll send them across to Mr. Berger. But right now we just have time for one more question.
Yeah.
Critique often leads to a sense of objectivity or normality. If Picasso was criticized, would his art be as unique? If we take Austin's Butterfly as an example, the critique happened to make it as close to the original photo as they could. The question then becomes, how can we create an environment or an atmosphere of critique and personalized learning while also not hampering creatives and creativity and like having personalization still be there?
Let me get the question one more time.
What I'm saying is how can we have critique or like a atmosphere of critique whilst also prioritizing creativity and individuality among students as well?
Okay, so I will end in saying I am a really big fan of critique because that's how we get better at anything. If you look at students that are practicing instruments for a concert, if you look at students who are practicing their football for a game, if you look at students who are practicing for a play or a debate, it's constant critique from each other, from the coach, from trainers, from musicians, from directors. It's constant critique. We live and get better from critique. We do less of it in the classroom than we could because it's everywhere else in our lives. And so I think we need to bring that spirit into the classroom, just like on the football pitch, just like when you're getting ready for an orchestra concert or a play or a debate or any kind of event in life. The only way to get better is to have other people be able to use kind, specific, and helpful advice for you. Those are my 3 rules of critique: be kind, be specific, and be helpful. So we need to have classrooms where there's an environment of trust, where the teacher is there to make sure kids aren't hurting each other's feelings, and we have to run critique sessions and have kids do informal critique all the time. And we have to have the academic courage to receive critique from our peers. We'll never get better at things if we're not willing to take critique. Thank you.